So welcome to the final part. We're going to wrap everything up in terms of what do the research questions and the results that we get mean for broader society, for science in general, and how that then wraps up. But we're also going to go back to what we talked about in the first video, which was about, science doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a context to it. There's a historical context, a moral context, but also we have to think about the fact that scientists are, paid by universities often or organizations, and the people that fund research have certain agendas or vision for what science they would like to see get done. Science is going to make them more profit or have a bigger impact on their reputation. And in the same way, scientists are also driven by those same concerns. So, bringing that all back to the way that science is in a context, I think is important, because I think, and especially with psychology, where we've seen some important information brought out there in terms of not being able to show that what one laboratory finds in their lab in terms of an answer, that answer can't be then found in another person's lab, and so it can't be replicated. And this is happening more and more, and we're finding out those types of problems, but we're also finding that there's a generalizability problem where we maybe can't use the same scientific findings in new contexts. So I think all that is really important to think about, and that'll be the basis of this video. Great. And again, research should be applied or applicable in some way. I mean, sometimes it is just, basic research where's my mouse? Here. Basic research. So, the kind of research that just tells you some understanding about what humans are like, might guide some deductive theory about what's going on, which then affects and modifies the applied research that happens, which then leads to the human and social world changing or adapting in some way, which then leads to an interpretation and explanation that leads to more basic research on that concept.
Yeah, like why do people not put arrows on circle charts and just assume they'll go clockwise? There's a good human and social world context.
It took me a long time to understand this thing.
Right in front of me.
I had to go, wait, what? And then I didn't really it's not a great graph. But I think the concept is a good one. It was better than me having to just speak through some text.
The mouse helps. I think people have got it now that they've got the mouse.
Good.
Yeah, so...
do you think I'm just putting you on the spot, do you think that human echolocation stuff is anywhere in this chart?
Yeah, so there are now hundreds of people who navigate their everyday lives with human echolocation, and I would say that the research has done a couple of things by now that have reached end users. For example, Laura Toller's analysis of the waveforms of echolocation clicks, looking at exactly what sound is used by different expert human echolocators and what their experiences are, has kind of informed practice, right? So it's kind of helped people realize it's not just in your ears. A lot of the skill of doing this is actually in your ability to make a good click, right? So that's become a more
with your mouth. Yeah.
And so that's become something that's a skill that's being transmitted among users more once it's been kind of highlighted how important that actually is.
So what are you saying that that was the basic research that happened, was looking at the waveforms?
Yeah, which guides a deductive theory.
And was that driven by the human?
Yeah.
That was from certain experts who are able to use their mouth sounds to know where things are in their environment
basically that study
basic
was
research.
Right. That study was more or less started just by Laura just listening as she talked to a lot of echolocators.
Yeah. Okay. So then, does that lead to a deductive theory?
Yeah, so it led to theory about, how the different ways you could have different power spectra in your click could lead to different reflections, which might give you different information or might make different information more clear, which is a deductive theory about how echolocation works in the physical world.
Okay. And then And then you can look to see if you can teach people how to use their mouths better.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I wanted to get into a little bit about the political and structural issues that also guide research. So this is a lot of Marcus Munafo, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, from Bristol University's work. He's been doing a lot of stuff on what science is replicable, what incentive structures are making it so that we're finding a lot of like scientific articles that are retracted because they were wrong. And so we know the current system rewards positive results. Just on Twitter this morning or last night, I saw somebody say like the mental gymnastics that are happening now with like pre-registering your study and saying like, this is what we're going to do with our study and this is where we expect to find. And then when they publish it, and leaving things really vague in some parts, just so that they're like, yeah, we can totally do more analyses so that if we try to find more things, just so that we have a positive result somewhere. So even when we're trying to, get rid of some of these biases, they're still there. And, it rewards novelty. You'll article, like editors say like, well, it's not novel enough, or, it's not sexy. I think some people have said, which is really gross.
Yeah, that's a really gross. Who said that to you? I'm sorry.
So yeah, I think this current system and how it rewards, publication quickly, many papers, and having those positive results that people are then going to talk about.
You got to make some noise. You got to get some eyeballs.
Yeah, I think, that then leads to questionable practices in research.
Absolutely.
So not being very clear about, your biases, lack of control for biases, not putting in alternative explanations, so that you can test those to make sure that your variable that you've chosen as the chosen one is like coming out on top. You're not like pitting it against anything else. Low statistical power, so just having fewer participants than what a power analysis would say. Stopping taking participants when you feel like they're the ones that are going to give you your significant
the
results.
data look good, I'll just stop. Yeah, don't do that.
And just a lack of transparency in how you're deciding when to stop, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or what you did and what you were thinking beforehand, because a lot of times people after the fact create stories. So, and I think a lot of this also is related to the, not just at the system level in terms of journal articles, but also in the universities. So what research gets kind of prioritized, even if it's not like a direct, you need to do research on this, you see that some of your colleagues maybe aren't retained, maybe are given redundancy. And you realize those people who are being hired or those who are retained are the ones who study certain
fMRI.
things. Yes.
All of them.
And the social psychologists are just leaving. And so you start to go, oh, you know what? I need to bill myself more as a biological scientist, or, we're scientists and we're observers. So we realize when things are happening in our institutions. And we're also told where are your research papers, where are your research papers that are making a big impact in terms of other scientists referring to them in their research work.
Yes.
So, a lot of what we then decide to do might be based more on that and affirming our pet theories and being known as the person who studies blah, 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 rather than going to maybe service users, the NHS, people who are just interested in and who are going to benefit from the research itself.
Right.
They're not having a feed on what's happening oftentimes because we are put on a lot of pressure from the universities and from and from the, the scientific community as a whole. So we need to align, training and incentives for career progression with scientific rigor and not just, the bare results.
Yes.
And I don't know how to do that.
We need to change the system, Luna. It's all part of the system.
I feel like I'm ending on but it's just the reality. When we talked about scientific context, I think, there's the historical, social cultural, the moral context, but there's also this context, the context of the scientists.
I feel like stuff like registered reports are gaining momentum, and I don't think we want to spend a lot more time trying to talk about how to change the system. It says there is now widespread recognition that it needs changing.
Yeah.
And I would basically say you can expect science in psychology to look different in 5 or 10 years if it even takes that long.
Yeah. Hopefully. And I think, if we train the next generation, I think it's going to be important.
Yeah.
So a lot of my presentation was taken from this Research Methods in Psychology 9th edition book, but also, just listening to Marcus on Twitter, but also he came up to University of Liverpool to give a seminar, so I found that deeply engaging. So if you get to see him, it's really good work. And also Steve Weatherhead, who does a lot of qualitative work at University of Liverpool, so it's where I got all my qualitative, because I really haven't delved into qualitative work much, although I am doing some Q-sort methodology. So you might see that in some of my publications in the future, or some of my trainees' proposals is looking at Q-sort, which is a kind of quantitative qualitative blend. So that's it. So maybe we should say goodbye and keep researching, keep learning.
And just remember, we have to change the system.
So go do that today. Bye.